I wanted to get here at 5:30.
All right, I'll say good morning. Let's begin. I'm sorry we're running a few minutes late this morning, and we definitely need every minute. So we left off Chav Gimel Amud Beis by the two dots. Hakli mitzayif mashe b'sochol lekodesh, avalo l'trumas. Remember again, the Mishnah said that the kli, a utensil, has the ability to combine everything within it for kodesh purposes, not for truma. Remember, the case of the Mishnah was that if you have multiple items sitting within one kli, and a tamei person goes ahead and touches one of the items, that when it comes to truma, only the item that was touched is tamei, as opposed to, again, kodesh, where if one of the items becomes tamei, everything else in the utensil becomes tamei. So that's what it means, hakli mitzarif. The kli brings them together. Minahani mili, where do we know this from? Amr Rav Chanan, Amr Kra, kaf achas, asara zahav melea kitores. So also, interestingly enough, the pasuk says kaf achas. One kaf literally means over here like a ladle. One ladle made from 10 talents of gold, melea kitores, filled with kitores. Filled with kitores. So the Gemara says something very interesting. Aso. So interestingly enough, Rav Chanan is making a little bit on the play on words of kaf achas. So we normally translate kaf achas as one ladle. So Rav Chanan says, no, kaf achas means what? Everything that is within the ladle is made into one. Everything within the ladle is combined into one. Master Rav Kahana says, so I will say, interesting enough, according to Rav Chanan, this concept that the kli goes ahead and combines everything is a din d'oraisa. All right, Master Rav Kahana raises a kasha. He says, Hosif Rabbi Akiva, Hasoles v'hakitores v'halavona v'hagicholim. So Rabbi Akiva added on to this list of things. Soles is fine flour. Kitores means incense. Levona is literally the frankincense. Gicholim are coals. Shinaga tvul yom b'miksaso. That if a tvul, also remember, a tvul yom is someone who has gone to the mikvah but has not yet had herav shemesh. He still needs the sun to go down. Shimnaga bahem tvul yom. Shimnaga tvul yom miksaso pasal eskulo. That if a tvul yom touches one of these things, and they're in a utensil, that lamaisa, when you touch part of it, the entire thing becomes everything within the utensil becomes tamei. But Rabbi, what's the point over here? V'hadrabanan, and yet again, this is a din drabanan. Now, how do we know that? So I'll say the contradiction is going to be. Here's what's interesting about this: everyone is agreeing in principle to the concept, which is that when you have multiple things within one utensil, and it's kodesh, if a tamei touches one of them, all of them become tamei. The shaila now is this a din d'araisa, or is this a din d'rabanan? Rav Chanan learned it out from a pasuk, and Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara says, to say it's a din d'rabanan, to which the Gemara says, Mimai, how do you know that Rabbi Akiva says that it's a din d'rabanan? Mediktani Reisha, because the beginning of the Mishnah says, the beginning of the Brisa says, Heyed Rabbi Shimon ben Meseira al Efer Chatos, because Rabbi Shimon ben Meseira gave testimony about Efer Chatos, the ashes of the paraduma, Shinaga Tamei Mekzaso, that if somebody who's tamei touches part of them, so the halacha is Shetime Eskulo, that the entire thing is tamei. The katani, and furthermore, it was stated about that, Hosif Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva added on to that. So we'll say the fact that it's clear from the beginning of the Mishnah, it's talking about a din d'rabanan, and then it says what? That Rabbi Akiva added on to it. It indicates that what? That Rabbi Akiva's din is also a din d'rabanan. So the question is, which one is it? Is the idea of naga b'mitzaso, kulo tamei? Kulo tamei, is that a din d'oraisa or din d'rabanan? Reish Lakish mishum bar kafra. So Reish Lakish saying bar kafra. Top of chaftal lo nitzucha elo l'sheyari mincha. The truth is, the din, Rabbi Akiva's din, was necessary only for what we call shiyari mincha. So what's a shiyari mincha means? Are the leftovers of a mincha offering. So we'll say what Reish Lakish seems to be suggesting is a little of a compromised position, that there are times when this din is d'oraisa, and there are times when this din is d'rabanan. For example, d'oraisa tzarich likli hakli mitzarfo she'in tzarich likli in kli mitzarfo. So listen to this. Mid d'oraisa, if you have something that requires a kli. So what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says di'ilu mid d'oraisa tzarich likli dumya diktores shebekaf The Ari Bakra, Kli Mitzarfa, V'shein Lazarach L'Kli, Kagon Shari Mincha, Shein Achilas Kohen, Ein Achli Mitzarfa. Supposed to listen to this. So Shlakish says like this: if you have something that requires a Kli, what does it mean something that requires a Kli? For example, Ketores. So we'll say you can't choose, the Kohen can't choose, you know what? I feel bad for the temple dishwasher. You know what? I want to take it easy on him. So I'm going to just bring the Ketores in my hand. You can't do that. Ketores needs a Kli. As opposed to, let's say, other things, for example, like Shiori Mincha. Shiori Mincha, the leftovers of the Mincha, that are the property of the Kohen to eat. That doesn't require a Kli Shari, so a temple utensil. So the Gemara says like this, something very interesting. If the thing that you're dealing with requires a Kli, then what? Then a Kli Mitzarfo. Then ultimately, again, Midoraisa, the Kli makes all of the parts within the Kli into one unit, which means what? Which means that Lemaisa, if you touch one of the things, everything becomes tameh. However, mid'oraisa, things that do not require a kli, the kli does not combine them. However, va'asud rabbanon v'gazru, and the rabbis came along and said, da'af agav dino tzarech lekli. So the rabbis came along and said, midrabbanon, even things that do not require a kli mitzarfo. Nevertheless, again, midrabbanon, the kli combines them into one unit. So we'll say now we've satisfied everyone. So essentially, again, this concept has a chelak, has a part of it that's doraisa, and has a part of it that's drabanan. When the item in question requires a kli, then the kli combines everything midoraisa. But midrabanan, the rabbis will go so that even if the item does not, even the subject does not need a kli, the material does not need a kli, the kli is mitzvah from midrabanan. Okay, tinach solas. Ketorah, steinach solas. So I understand the case of fine flour. However, again, ketores ulavona ma'ikal meimar. What is there to say ultimately again by ketores and lavona? Rashi says ma'ikal meimar. Harit tzrich and lekli. These items require a kli midaraisa. Rav Nachman ara baravua kigon. So also, I mean, when would you ever have a case? When would you ever have a case of ketores and lavona? That's drabanan. See, because what the Gemara is pointing out over here is, if you look at Rabbi Akiva's lashon, if you look at the lashon of our Mishnah doesn't seem to be mechalik between deraisa and drabanan. So let's assume everything's drabanan. So where would you ever have a case of ketoris and levona where this concept applies midrabanan? If lemais again they require a kli midaraisa. Rabbi Baravua, listen to this. It's actually interesting. Kigon shetzavran al gabe kartabla. Right, that if you go ahead and you spread it out on top of a kartabla. What is a kartabla? Rashi says, or shalok. Shalok literally means boiled leather. What it means is you spread it out on top of a leather mat. Da'araisa yesh lo toch mitzarif. Ein lo toch, ein lo mitzarif. Well, this is actually very interesting because mid'araisa, what type of kli, what type of utensil has the ability to combine the contents? Only kli that has a toch. What's a toch? A base kibble, a receptacle. But a kli that does not have a toch, that does not have a receptacle, is not able to combine them. Which is what's taking even a step further. There are opinions that hold the midaraisa, something that doesn't have a base kibble or receptacle isn't even called a kli midaraisa. All right, va'asur rabbanon v'tiknu ta'afagav de'in lo toch mitzaref. And the rabbis came along and they legislated that even if you have a utensil that does not have a toch, that does not have a receptacle, nevertheless midrabanan what? It still combines everything that is on top of it into one entity. Upliga d'Rab Chanin, ad Rab Chia bar Abba. And Rab Chanin argues on Rab Chia bar Abba. Why? Don't Rab Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan meidusa Rabbi Akiva nishnes mishnazu. Because I was to listen to this. Because Rab Chia bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that based on the testimony of Rabbi Akiva was our Mishnah written. I also remember again, what did Rabbi Akiva say? Rabbi Akiva was the one who said that this whole din of Akli Mitzarfo is what? Is a din d'Rabbanan. And here you have Rav Chia bar Abba saying that our Mishnah is based on Rabbi Akiva, which indicates that our Mishnah is also d'Rabbanan. The Gemara just points out that argues on Rav Chanin, because Rav Chanin holds that what? That the Iker din of Kli Mitzarfo is a din d'Oraisa. Okay, so we end off with the machlokes about whether or not the din d'Oraisa is mitzarf of Kli Mitzarfo is a din d'Oraisa or d'Rabbanan. But the truth is, the Gemara also gives us a compromised position, telling us that whenever the subject and matter requires a Kli, then Kli Mitzarfo mid'Oraisa. When it doesn't require a Kli, then it's Kli Mitzarfo mid'Rabbanan. Good. Ha'revi b'kodesh pasul. Remember again, the next thing in the Mishnah was that I will say with kodesh, even a revi is pasul. Remember again, normally tuma ends at what we'll call the shlishi level. So remember again, you have an avatuma. Something touches the avatuma becomes a rishon. Rishon could communicate Tuma to make something else a Sheni. Sheni could communicate something else to a Shlishi. But when you become a Shlishi, Rabbosai, you don't have the ability to go ahead and communicate any subsequent Tuma. You're just simply what's called puzzle. You're puzzle. Except when it comes to Kodesh, the Mishnah says. When it comes to sacrificial items, it could even become a Revi. Which Rabbosai, remember when we started this whole parak, we spoke about the idea that the greater the intensity of Kedusha, so the more receptive the item is to Tumah. So therefore, again, Kodesh, which is of a higher level than anything else, by definition could even become a Revi. Says the Gemara, Tanya, Am Rabbi Yossi, Minayin Revi, Kodesh Shupasal. How do we know that if you have a Revi by Kodesh, that it's possible? I will say Pasal means that it itself becomes unfit, but yet again, it does not communicate Tumah to anything else. So the Gemara says, V'dinhu, I'll tell you why it's a Kavachomer. What's the Kavachomer? Uma mechusar kippurim shemoter betruma possible kodesh. We'll say, who's mechusar kippurim? Mechusar kippurim is someone who has gone to the mikvah, has experienced hair of shemesh. The sun has already gone down, but what? His particular type of tumah requires karbanos, and he has not yet brought his karbanos. This could be like a zav, a metzora. So I went to the mikvah, sun went down, just haven't brought my karbanos. So the Gemara says, if mechusar kippurim is mutter b'truma, he's permitted to eat truma, but he is prohibited in kodesh. Shlishi, then all the more so a shlishi, shepasel b'truma. So I will say a shlishi, ultimately again, who is not permitted to eat truma, Eino din shiyasa revi kodesh, should it not go without saying that he has the ability to communicate tuma to kodesh and therefore make it a revi. V'lamanu shlishi lekodesh min haTorah. Therefore, it turns out that we learn out the concept that Kodesh could become a Shlishi Midaraisa and a Revi'i from a Kavachomer. So also the Kavachomer is what we just stated. Shlishi leKodesh Minatorah Minayin. How do we know that again that there's a concept of Shlishi by Kodesh Minatorah? It's actually an interesting Kavachomer. Dichsiv v'habasar asher yiga b'chol tamei. Because the pasuk says that the meat that will go ahead and come in contact with anything that is tamei, lo ye'achel, it shall not be eaten. And I will say, interestingly enough, the Gemara says, Milo askinon dinaga b'sheni. Are we not talking about where the meat came in contact with the sheni? The ka'amarachmana lo yochal, lo ye'achel, and yet the pasuk says that it shall not be eaten. Why not? What do you see from there? From there you see that Lamaisa, Sheni can make something else into a Shlishi. And I will say, how does the Gemara know that V'habasar Sheiga B'chol Tamei? How do you know that B'chol Tamei refers to a Sheni? So Rashi actually points this out. It's very interesting. Rashi says that because when the wording of the pasuk says V'habasar Sheiga B'chol Tamei. So B'chol Tamei means anything that is tumah. So the way, interesting enough, the Gemara chooses to interpret that pasuk is the most basic, weakest form of tumah. What's the weakest form of tumah we know before this pasuk? It's a sheni. And yet the pasuk is telling us that even if the meat comes in contact with the sheni, the weakest form of tumah, it's also tummy, which tells us what? That a sheni has the ability to make something a shlishi. Very interesting drasha. So therefore the Gemara says, Revi v'kavachomer hada amran. And about the fact that by Kodesh, a shlishi can make something into a revi'i, that we learn from a kavachomer. That's what we just said before. That was the kavachomer from the chusar kippurim. So therefore, we learn out again that a sheni could make something into a shlishi. We learn that from the pasuk, and that a shlishi can make something into a revi'i. That we learn from the kavachomer. Ubetruma im nitmes. We'll say again, this was another very interesting case. So if you remember again, the Mishnah said, Ubetruma im nitmes achas miyadav. Chaverta tahora, right? By truma, if one of your hands became tamei, the other hand is tahor. Ubekodesh, right? Ubekodesh matpil shtein. But by kodesh again, apparently, if one of your hands becomes tamei, then lemaise again both become tamei. Shayad metamei es chaverta bekodesh, aval lo betruma. Fine. Says the Gemara. Ubetruma amar of shizbi bichiburin shanu. This is only talking about what? Where the two hands are touching each other. Look at Rashi. Bichiburin shanu. Masnisin diktani yad metame es chaver to the kodesh. When the Mishnah said that one hand can be metame, another hand by kodesh. We'll say, remember, when we say one hand can be metame, another hand, these are my two hands, right? So my left hand is tame, my right hand is not. So the Mishnah said that by truma, again, just because my left hand is tame, my right hand remains tar. But yet by kodesh, if my left hand is tamei, my right hand becomes tamar. Rav Shizvi comes along and says, 1 second, you have to qualify this statement. Now back to Rashi. Masnisin diktani yad metame es chaverta lekodesh kigon shebaot shayad hatmea nogas letahora haisa hatahora nogas bekodesh. The gazir abanan dilma asi leminga tamea bekodesh. We'll say that's very interesting. So what's the case over here? The case is where while I'm touching let's say the kodesh item with my right hand, my tahar hand, my left hand, my tamei hand, is touching my tahar hand. So again, remember, when do we say that one hand is metame, another hand by kodesh? That's only when my tahar hand is on the kodesh, and my tamei hand is touching my tahar hand. That's when we say that by kodesh, my tamei hand transmits tumah to my tahar hand. Why? What's the concern? Because now this makes a little bit more sense. Now, what's the concern? The concern is that I'm one touch away from touching the kodesh itself. Therefore, again, that's the case where the tamei hand transmits tumah to the tahar hand. However, again, back to the Gemara about shelo b'chiburin. But if my tamei hand is not touching my tahar hand at the time that my tahar hand is touching the kodesh, then what? Then lemaisa again lo. Then it does not communicate tumah to the tahar hand. Look at Rashi. Shelo b'chiburin shala'achar shapir shemin Torah. If my tamei hand only touches my tahar hand after my tahar hand is removed from the kodesh, chazra tahora v'naga b'kodesh tar ve'iyad metami chaver telasos afilu shlishus lifsal. Both says, remember again. So just for prop purposes, that this is my kodesh, right? This is my kodesh. So again, when do we say that for kodesh purposes, my tamei hand goes in as metame my tahar hand? If my tahar hand is on the kodesh and my tamei hand is touching my tahar hand, then I'm able to communicate tumah to the kodesh. But if I have my tamei hand and my tahar hand, and I touch my tamei hand, we hold hands, and then afterwards I go ahead and I pick up the kodesh, that does not communicate tumah to the kodesh. Says the Gemara, Esvei Abai. So Abai raised the kasha. Yad neguva metame chaverta latame kodesh avalo l'truma divrei Rebbe. So what the Brisa says that a dry hand has the ability to communicate tumah to its friend in order to transmit tumah to kodesh, but not for truma purposes. These are the words of Rebbe. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says, lifsol avalo l'tame. No, it's not true. A dry hand could communicate tumah for psul purposes, but cannot actually go ahead and render something. Tami Rashi says over here, yad neguva. Even though again the hand is, so what the Gemara is pointing out of is that normally to transmit tumah you need some type of liquid medium to make something kosher l'tumah, hokshel l'tumah, but that doesn't apply over here. So Gemara says the neguva. So we'll say if you tell me over here that this price is not talking about a case of where the tamei hand was touching the tahar hand, then I understand because that's the chiddush over here. The chiddush over here is that even if the hands are not touching and they're dry, they have the ability to go ahead and communicate tumah in some way. However, again, ella I amit b'chiburin in shelo b'chiburin lo myra busa dineguva. But if you tell me that this is still talking about over here, what? Still talking about if the hands are touching, but if they're not touching, there's no communication of tumah. Then why do we even have to bring up this idea that the hand is dry? Itmar nam Reish Lakish. Similarly, again, Reish Lakish said, lo shano ela yado. We'll say we only said what? We only said this is talking about one's own hand. Aval, Amud Beis. Aval yad chaveiro lo. We'll say it's another very interesting halacha. When do we say that this is now who is talking over here? This is Reish Lakish. When do we say that one hand is able to communicate tumah to the other hand? That's only when my hands. But if my friend's tamei hand touches my hand, then what? Then Lamaisa says Reish Lakish that does not go ahead and communicate. That does not communicate tumah. But Rabbi Yochanan said, "Echad yado ve'echad yad chaveiro ba'osa hayad lifsal." Interestingly enough, Rabbi Yochanan, however, on the other hand, says, no, it's not true. Whether it's my hand or it's my friend's hand, one tamei hand has the ability to communicate tumah to a second tamei hand. However, again, it only gives that second tamei hand the ability for psul, avalo l'tamei, but not to go ahead and transmit tumah. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Ba'osayad Im naga biyad rishon biyad chavero, aval hashniya eina metame yad chavero. V'lifsal es hakodesh hu de'amar yad metame chaver tavalo l'tame. So we'll say, so this is very interesting. So you have another fundamental machlokes in Yochanan and Reish Lakish, namely that is this din of one hand being metame, another hand, is this just a din on my own hands, or is this a din even in what? Even in my friend's hand. So Reish Lakish says again, it's only a din in my hand. Rabbi Yochanan holds it's even a din in what? Even a din in my friend's hand. I will say again, remember, just to be clear, everyone's agreeing, however, that this is all rabbinic tumah. Obviously, I'm not talking about any tumah, so all rabbinic tumah. So the Gemara says, Mimai, from where do we know this? Midiktani Seifa, because if you look at the end of the Mishnah, Shayad mitame chaverta lekodesh, avalo l'truma. Because what did the Seifa say? That one hand has the ability to transmit tumah to its friend for kodesh and not for truma purposes. Hasulamli, but why do I need this? Why do I need this case? Hatan al-Reisha. It was already stated in the Reisha. Rashi says Hatan al-Reisha ula kodesh mat bilin shtein. Remember again, earlier on in the Mishnah, it already said that lamaisa for kodesh purposes you immerse both hands, which indicates what? Which indicates that lamaisa one hand could transmit tumah to the other. To which the Gemara says Allah shmamina la'asu yad chavero. Oh, but rather it must mean what? That second statement in the Mishnah must be coming to include even the hand of my friend. That even the hand of my friend has the ability to communicate tumah to my own. Va'af Reish Lakish hadarbei, and even Reish Lakish ultimately retracted his earlier position. The Amrab, meaning also, remember Reish Lakish was the one who said that my friend's hand cannot transmit tumah to my own. So even Reish Lakish went ahead and retracted this position. The Amrab Yona, Amrab Ami, Amr Reish Lakish, Echad Yado, ve'echad Yad Chavera, ba'osa hayad lifsal, avalo l'tamei. So the Gemara says, even Reish Lakish said that whether it's my tamei hand or my friend's tamei hand, if that tamei hand touches the other hand, the tar hand, it has the ability to transmit tumah. However, again, that tumah is limited in that it makes the other hand, meaning the other hand is puzzle, but itself cannot transmit any subsequent tumah. So the Gemara says, "Avalol tamei." V'lifsa avalol tamei tanahi. This idea that it becomes puzzle but can't transmit any additional tumah is in and of itself imachlokes tanoim. Disnan, because we learned kala posel b'truma mitame yadayim liyoshnios. I will say anything that invalidates by truma has the ability to go ahead and be mitame liyadayim, to make them into shnios, to make them into second tier tumah. V'yad mitame chaverta. And similarly, again, one hand has the ability to transmit tumah to its friend. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua, these are the words of Rabbi Yeshua. V'achram the chum say, yadayim shniosein, yadayim are automatically shnios. Ve'ein sheni os sheni b'chulin. And one sheni cannot go ahead and do a lateral transmission of tumah, make something else into a sheni. My love sheni hu dilo avid, hashlishi avid. So when we say that hands that are sheni can't make something else into a sheni, does that not mean that they can't make it into a sheni, but what? They can make it into a shlishi. So the Gemara says, maybe not. Dilma, lo sheni avid, velo shlishi. No, perhaps it means that they can't go ahead and make it into a sheni or shlishi, which also is another way of saying that the hands themselves become puzzle, but not necessarily tamei. Ela ki hani tanoi. Rather, it's like this machlokes on this sanya. Yad neguva matame es chaver tame b'kodesh avalo l'truma. So let's say, because we learned that what? A dried hand has the ability to matame its friend for kodesh purposes, to go to be matame by kodesh, but not for truma. Divrei Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Divrei Rabbi. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer, osa yad lifsol avalo l'tamei. And also on the other hand, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda holds that no, that hand can become puzzle, but cannot transmit tumah. So once I fundamental machlokes tanoim, everyone's going to agree that one hand can be metame another midirabanan, but the shaila is what? The shaila is what level of tumah it actually conveys. Rebbe Lemais is saying that it could actually go ahead and make a hand into a shlishi. Another Rabbi Yossi Yehuda is saying that Lemais no, it really doesn't make it tumah, it just simply makes it puzzle. Okay. It's the second hand, correct. The first hand itself is the hand that came in contact with the actual tumah. We're talking now the transmission from the tamei hand to the tar hand, correct. Ochlin, niguvim biyadayim mesuavos. Remember the Mishnah said that you can go ahead and literally eat food. You can go ahead and eat food with biyadayim mesuavos, literally means dirty hands. So remember again, the context. The context is Ochlim Nuguvim biyadayim mesuavos b'truma. No, this wasn't it. Ochlim the guvim be'adam is avos b'truma v'alo b'kodesh. You could eat foods. Thank you. You can go ahead and you could eat an old one. You can go ahead. Thank you. Actually, you can go ahead and you could eat foods that are dry with dirty hands, which means again hands that came in contact with tuma for truma purposes, but not for kodesh. Says the Gemara. Tanya, Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus. Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus said, "V'chiyesh neguva b'kodesh." And I will say again, this idea that somehow if the hands are dry, that there's no liquid medium, it would prevent the transmission of tumah. Is that really true by kodesh? After all, v'halo chibas hakodesh machshirasan. Well, it says actually interesting. Chibas hakodesh means the love of kodesh makes them receptive to tumah. What does it mean about saying that sometimes what the Gemara is suggesting here is that something could be so holy in nature that its incredible holiness makes it receptive to tumah even without a liquid medium. So does not the fact that kodesh is of such great sanctity by definition allow the hands to become tamei? Or I should say, allow the transmission of tumah. So let me be clear. What the Gemara is talking about over here is that l'maisa, you might have thought that if my hands are dry, they pretty much can't transmit tumah, or if the food is dry, they can't. My hands can't transmit tumah to the food. To which the Gemara says, but is that really true? At the end of the day, kodesh is so sensitive that even with dry hands, l'maisa tumah should be transmitted. To which the Gemara says, listen to this. Lo tzricha, what's the case? Case is actually interesting. Kigon shetachav lo chaveru lo soch piv. What's the case I will say? Where my friend put the kodesh into my mouth, meaning I'm not touching the kodesh. Right? He puts the kodesh right into my mouth. Oh, shetachafuliyat bikusha bekarkar. Or what happens? Or is perhaps a more simpler case is where I went ahead and I put a toothpick into the kodesh, and I'm going. It's a kodesh, Frank in a blanket, right? I went ahead and I put the toothpick in there, and I ate it, and I'm eating it. So we'll say, what's the chap of the toothpick? The chap of the toothpick is I am avoiding direct contact with the kodesh itself. However, listen to this: ubikesh le'echol tznon ubatzal shalchulin imaim. But what do I want to do? I want to go ahead and eat. It's known as an onion, or it's garlic, or a radish. A radish or an onion of chulin with them. So we'll say I want to go ahead and eat something. I want to eat something chulin together with the kodesh. So the Gemara says likodesh gazu b'rabbanan l'truma gazu b'rabbanan. So let's listen to this. So the concern is like this. The concern is that l'maisa, my hand is tamei. My hand is tamei. But okay, not a problem. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to avoid tumah for kodesh purposes. We'll say thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and thank you. I'm going to go ahead and avoid kodesh. I'm going to avoid kodesh issues. How? I'm not going to touch the kodesh. But it happens to be I want to eat the kodesh together with what? Together with chulin. So Chazal said like this. Now, my hand is tamei. So the Gemara said like this. When it comes to truma, that's no problem. That's not a problem at all because again, as long as your hands are dry, not a problem. However, with kodesh, even if you are not touching the kodesh itself, but you are handling the chulin, we're concerned that what? That as a process of handling the chulin, you may come to go ahead and handle the truma as well, the kodesh as well, and be matami the kodesh. That's why again, if one's hands are tamei, one is not permitted to go ahead and eat kodesh, even if lamaisa, one is not going to handle the kodesh directly. So we'll stop over here. We'll mamish pick up right here tomorrow, Mirza Hashem. I'll get it. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.
What time's tomorrow?
Regular. 5:45. Slichos like 6:20, 6:25. Same time tomorrow. Correct. The Naga B'Sheni, he says because the kli becomes a rishon. So how do you know? In other words, like let's say the contents of the kli were all the way at the top. So I assume the kli becomes a rishon because it's in the touch. What if it never hits the touch and it just hits the outside? Hits what's in it. Or the contents of the kli.
And let's say you have stuff all the way at the top.
So if you're metame ochlin. If you're metame the ochlin in the kli, I guess that transmits tumah to the kli. Meaning, Ochlim have the ability to transmit
How
Tumah to
do
Kelim.
we know that it becomes, because we're saying them in a Torah that it's a shame.
Right.
How do we know? In other words, so it seems Rashi's saying because it makes the Keli a Rishon, and then the Keli makes the Ochlim or whatever's in it a Sheni.
Right.
How do you know? In other words, maybe you could say it's only saying where it's all the way at the top, and so it's just the time of the
How do you know the concept that if a Kli is a Rishon, what's inside of it is a Sheni?
What made the Rishon? What made the Keli into? In other words, you're saying, what kind of? You're saying it could be a case like a metal Keli.
Kli Mateches, where the Tumah touches the outside, Kli becomes a Rishon, automatically renders everything inside a Sheni. Because your kasha would be in a Kli Chares.
Yeah, but I'm saying in order to make it a Sheni, don't you, in order to say that it's necessarily talking about a Sheni, you have to understand that needs to be the case. In other words, otherwise you say...
Why? Because you're asking if
it
touched...
could be saying just the Rishon.
Again, because you're saying maybe it's a case of where the Tumah touched the food itself that's in the Kli, but Lam Dafka touched the Kli.
Right, or maybe the food is piled up. And so
Yeah, I don't know what the halacha is in that case. If it goes in and touches the food on the inside, but doesn't touch the Keli...
Because the Keli is mitzaref, presumably.
Yeah, but that's not even a case. Mitzaref is a different case. Mitzaref is...
But I'm saying when that you could find a case where what's in it, because that's what it's saying, that whatever's in it is tamei. I'm saying you could find, I would think you could find a case where what's in it is tamei, is a rishon only. In which case, how do you know that the Torah has a case where it says makes a sheni?
Right. Well, I think what the Gemara is talking about, I think the reason why Rashi chooses that case is because they're looking for like the lowest possible level of biblically mandated tumah.
Right.
Which is this case, not the case you're describing.
But in other words, you can't assume that the pasuk, that the Torah creates a sheni if in other words, from this pasuk. How do you know? In other words, because it's a chiddush to say that the Torah is saying a sheni. You have to know that. So in other words, if you could find a case where it's not a sheni, then you could say maybe the Torah only takes it to a rishon level.
I'm not following you. So it's just, I'm going to look at this again. Okay, so we just established the
we're making a chiddush that the Torah recognizes a sheni l'tuma.
Correct.
But in other words, from that pasuk, how do you know? In other words, you could have. In other words, you're saying you're not trying to limit it. In other words, whatever the pasuk could be contemplating.
Yeah, I think what at least the way I understood Rashi is what the Gemara is looking at is what is the lowest possible form of tumah you could create. And I think the lowest possible form of tumah that you could create based on what we know is the case of, let's say, where the tumah is nogia on the outside and then is metam on the inside.
We're not trying to limit it. It's trying to be expansive, actually.
That is correct. That is correct. I think.
But I guess, we're saying the Torah by definition does have a sheni, and I guess I don't know how you know it's from that pasuk. Because maybe the Torah was only talking about it where it was a rishon.
Right, I have to, the truth is, I have to look at that also. That's the truth. I understand what you're saying.
Another 2-second question, maybe 2 seconds go down. In yesterday's Gemara, what does that mean to tzdukim who don't believe in this rabbanim dikatuma to begin with? In other words, if they don't believe in this,
But it affirms that we do.
in other words, but proving that we don't care about a Harav Shemesh, so you would want to take a tumah that they recognize, and despite that, you do it, right? Because in other words, that's saying we don't care about Harav Shemesh. But if they say we don't believe in the Drabanan, so to prove that you created a Drabanan Dika Harav Shemesh, and then you did it anyway, so the whole thing's a Drabanan.
Well, they hold that Tavul Yom can't do Paraduma.
Right.
So
what do you want to create a case that their maskim is Tameh, and then do it anyway? But in order to say...
Why? You want to dispute the very point that they're fixating? I don't know why.
They're saying that
Tavul Yom can't do it.
Can't do it, right? So what you would want to do, if you want to take away from them, is to create a case where it is the full yom that they, where it's a tumor that they recognize, right? That meaning that would be more Torah.
Yeah.
And then do it anyway.
Yeah, but that's not the halacha.
What?
You mean make him a full yom and a tumah d'oraisa?
Yeah, because then it proves something to the still can say, see, even your masculine, this is a full yom in the right.
What was the tumah of the?
Because it said they made it as if it's the second after the second hazaya
on the
of
seventh
the
day,
seventh day. So they're creating a drabanan dika zera of tumah. So what does that prove about the? In other words, it's still say fine. You created a tumah and then you did it anyway. So what do I care? That's not a tumah deraisa. So you didn't. So in the case where you say you touch him with a sheret.
I think the Gemara and Yuma discussed that. I think that we had that discussion already. Yeah. I think we discussed that. I think we discussed that because I think the Gemara spoke about that idea, and I think what the Gemara did discuss was this idea so as not to totally disparage Paraduma. That to purposely go ahead, I have to look that up.
Because they made a thing, therefore that's what they said that they weren't Machadish Tumah by Paraduma.
Right.
Because I think they were somewhat methodical and
right.
They didn't want people to
Correct. So I think I'm going to look up the Gemara. I believe that the Gemara has that discussion.
It's very hard to catch up with this stuff.
It's hard to catch up once you start with them. So. El Melech Malvern Misham Mishlam Yikosef Chosh Oses Lagos in Kolbasim Kosos Imam Elrei Sulan Ralam Shloshos Rei Skhanala Yom Shloshos Rei Moshe Moshe Kosov Vayin Rabana Tiv Moshe Aikra B'Shem Adonai Vayavar Adonai Alpanav Aikra Adonai Adonai Ey Arachum V'Chanun Erech Habayim B'Rav Chesed Yemes Nose Chesed Lefum Nose Avon V'Pasha Chata V'Rakai V'Sanach Rabbanim V'Chatesim V'Chata L'Sachmanadinu Ki Chatonu Chavaginu Ki Fashanu Ki Ataha Adonai Tzal B'Salach Rav Chesed V'Chol Korecho Teilom Yashon Zanzer Yashon Zvan Yashon Zvan Yashon Zvan Sabran Zvan Yashon 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 Tzad Yashon Zvan Yashon Zvan Yashon Neomer Adonai Salachti Kidvarecho Yashon 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 Zvan Yashon Zvan Atav Asher Yisrael Atav Moshe Yashon Yashon Moshe Kadosh Yashon Adon Ram Yashon 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 Atav Yashon Atav Yashon 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 Shema Shad Lachad Masar Manoshim Chora Marazon Shacham Masar Zon Ki Odol Shazon Hashem Shazon Hashem Tashon Hashem 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 Khalash Hashem 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 Kudosh Hashem Hashem Kosh Hashem 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 Amor Koshim Khakirachum Hashem 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 Kiyash Hashem Kiyash Muhammad Atar Shabbos Alavan Kulam Musa'azua Rush Hadeonai Hashem Sinsa Visvesnaim Eichat Vasalos Vasayim Shakaras Vins Vasayim Abusha Vishesh Mashkilu Vihi Haisam B'charetz Mulala Eichat Anachshas Mulala Ragul Roshes Velikla Allah Levas Amayim Benala Ashek Nabecha Prismala Ateichata Nifu Ragleha Halimah Allah Nayoshe Akrim Tirim Chozos Oban so, Amar Havim, Loparasim, Lopim, Karamechanim, Karamechanim, Matzparasim, Shrim, Silsam, Tzepin, Shmasam, Matma, Holstakos, and Amada, Barasana, Shasina, Smatasek, Kosia, Elef, Mioshia, Nasim, Mr. Machalas, Mission, Mr. Bakosh, Obsessed Stakos, in Cobras, Matrasim, Elris, and Lana, Lamashlosh, Sahana, Yobush, Loshis, Moshe, Moshe, Hasso. Fire never know as a TV Moshe, like the shame Adonai. Adonai, Apana, Vaikra. Adonai, Adonai, Eirachom V'Chanon. Erech HaChaim B'Rav Chesed Yemes, Nose Chesed Alpim Nose Avon V'Pasha. B'chata v'nakei v'salachta lavaninu v'lechatasinu chatanu sachmarabinu ki chatanu chavaginu ki pashanu ki ataha Adonai tov v'salach v'rach chesed b'chol korecha Adonai Adonai Yarachum V'Chamun Erech Habayim B'Rav Chesed Yemes Let's go to the cinema, brush up, cut off, and okay. So that's all we have to say.
First, we learn the Yichato Nechshas Mechulala, along with the bushes of Lala. Bismillah, Yichato Mechulala, Bachar, Bush, Kitir, Bosos, Vayavar Adonai Apanav Vayikra Adonai Adonai El Rachom V'Chanun Erech Habayim B'Rav Chesed Yemes Nosei Chesed Elef Nosei Amon V'Fasha V'Chata V'Nakei Shalach Olav Aleinu Chata Sinu Chata Nesach Lavinu Ki Chatanu Chagigah Ki Pashanu Ki Ataha Adonai Tov V'Salach B'Rav Chesed L'Chol Korecha ירחם החמר ובמזון ציון חומש סליחו זכרנו מצחקים ושמסנו מקווים עתה מלאכו יצטרפו זמקדם אביר ועשון עצמא שס קורס פריס לשני בלי ושכם משוע אחרים עתה שעתה מלאכו דחה הציעה מהריסה באחים תבחו משה דחה האחריס חסנך למסור ועתה עתה כי עתה אנחנו נשס השקטנו צורנו סלח לנו ונרזו ג'נה סלח לנו יתם השס ושס
782.
Bezavos Kashavata. Bezavos Kashavata. Bezavos Kashavata. אני אדינוי. אצלנו שאותנו מהגודל והסבר שלהם ולעשות לאותנו עושים לסימיתם. כי אני אדינוי אלוהים שש. עשו להקבלים כמו אשר עשו. שב לנסה של עצמם חמישה להתרס ונשאר ליצחון שמה. וז'ר ויצחון שמה. כביזי נתנו של עשו ונכנס ונשאר להתרס ונשאר להתרס וחייב שנכנס. שוב אליי כי הגיעתי חו. נשאר עצמם נשאר דסך. Abi Khadra Shawa Shansun Khashas Wan Shadra Shakosha Yonder Kostan Kostan Wan Torah Shwas Matata Khosas Rakhim Matash Kostan Kimash Kosuk Rakhmat Allah Khashas Asmas Shas
It just says skip as regular, so we normally skip all of these over.
Shema Koleinu Adonai Eloheinu Chos v'rachem aleinu v'kala v'rachamim v'ratzon es tfilasenu Ashireinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadish yameinu v'kedem Shekhinah Mechulacha V'ruach Vadshecha Zikayachenu Atatoni Zikno Milas Kocheinu Atazino Atazino Asimos Adonai Moshe Kedan V'Gami Chamtenu Amayinu Azira Adonai Bin Hayinu V'Ratzonu Mifi V'Engyoni B'Lefanecha Adonai